There is a version of your garden that you have probably imagined but maybe never quite believed in. The version where you are not starting over every spring. The version where you are not making the same trip to the garden center in May with the same empty cart and the same sinking feeling that last year's investment is gone. The version where your yard actually improves on its own, year after year, while you do less and less to make it happen. That version is not a fantasy. It is the direct result of choosing the right 6 plants, not 10, not 26. 6 perennials that, once established in your soil, will return every single year without prompting. And not just return. Come back, larger, denser, more floriferous, more impressive than the year before. Plants that compound like interest. Plants that give back more than they take. I have spent years watching gardeners. Experienced ones, frustrated ones, people who have tried everything, transform their relationship with their outdoor space the moment they commit to perennials that are genuinely built for permanence. And I have watched just as many people choose the wrong perennials. Plants that were technically perennial on the label, but fragile in practice. Plants that made it 2 seasons and faded. Plants that returned, but smaller. The difference between those 2 outcomes almost always comes down to one thing: understanding which plants are truly built to get better with age and which ones are merely surviving. Every plant on today's list falls into a specific category that most people do not know exists. I call it the compounding category. These are plants where the first-year version is actually the worst version you will make. Ever see where year 3 is dramatically better than year 1? Where year 7 looks like a completely different plant than what you put in the ground? If you are watching this and you have been gardening for any length of time, some of these will reframe things you thought you already knew. Stay with me through all 6, because the last plant on this list is the one that breaks the most commonly repeated rule in perennial gardening, and it breaks it correctly. Let us begin. The first plant is Baptisia, commonly called false indigo, and it is the one I want you to understand before any other plant on this list, because it teaches you something about the compounding category that applies to everything else. We will discuss. Most people who encounter Baptisia for the first time are underwhelmed. They see a small, gray-green shrub-like plant with modest foliage in year 1 and think, fine, but nothing special. What they are looking at is roughly 20% of what Baptisia will become. The plant is not putting energy into above-ground performance in its first season. It is doing something far more important, underground. Baptisia develops one of the most extensive taproots of any perennial in cultivation. That taproot goes down, and down, and then down some more. By the time a Baptisia is 3 years old, it has anchored itself into the earth with a root system that can survive drought conditions that would kill most other ornamentals outright. That root system is also feeding a plant that, by year 4 or 5, has grown into something that will genuinely stop you in the yard. In late spring, Baptisia sends up flower spikes that look almost exactly like lupines. Tall, densely packed columns of bloom in deep indigo blue, soft yellow, or pure white, depending on the species. After the flowers fade, the inflated seed pods take over, turning charcoal black and rattling in the wind through fall. The foliage, a soft, blue-green, stays attractive from emergence until the first hard frost. This is a plant with 3 distinct ornamental seasons. For species selection, Baptisia australis gives you the classic deep indigo that the plant is named for. The cultivar, purple smoke, is a hybrid with lavender-purple flowers and dramatically dark stems, genuinely striking. Lemon meringue is compact and puts up clean yellow blooms on a tighter plant, useful in smaller borders. Ola zone 3 through 9. Here is the critical instruction, and I want you to hear it clearly. Do not move this plant after the first year. Do not transplant it. Do not dig it to check on it. Choose the location carefully before you plant, because the taproot that makes this plant extraordinary is also what makes it essentially impossible to relocate once established. Site it in full sun or light shade, skip the compost amendment, skip the fertilizer, plant it correctly at the right depth, and then make yourself a rule. Do not touch it for 36 months. Come back in 3 years and you will find something worth photographing. What baptisia teaches you is this. The compounding plants ask for patience, not labor. The plant, too, is hellebore, and the reason it belongs immediately after baptisia on this list is that it proves the compounding principle works even in the conditions where most gardeners have given up entirely. You have a spot in your yard. You know the one. Deep shade, north-facing, dry under the canopy of a mature tree. The kind of spot where you have tried things and watched them fail, where hostas look acceptable but never actually bloom, where the light is so limited that you have essentially written that corner off as decorative, mulch territory. Hellebores look at that spot and call it ideal. They bloom in late winter, sometimes February, often before anything else in the garden is stirred. Nodding, cup-shaped flowers in a color range that runs from pure white through dusty rose, plum, burgundy, and a deep near black that has to be seen in person to be believed. Those flowers persist on the plant for weeks, sometimes 2 full months, before slowly fading to green. By the time they are done, the new season's foliage has fully emerged, and the plant looks clean and structured all summer long. Then it does the exact same thing again next February. For 30 to 40 years, the category to look for is Helleborus times hybridus, sometimes sold as orientalis, the Lenten roses. Within that category, the Wedding Party series reliably delivers double flowers in excellent, consistent colors. Ison Roses is a European series, bred specifically for vigor and flower quality in variable conditions. If you can find Anna's Red at your local nursery, buy every one they have. The flower color in late winter light is genuinely unusual. Here is the care instruction that surprises most people. Do not cut the foliage off in the fall, even when it looks tired. Leave it standing. That foliage is insulating the crown through winter. In late winter, right before you start seeing flower buds emerge, that is the moment to remove the previous year's leaves. It clears the stage for the flowers and takes about 10 minutes. That is the only task this plant will ask of you all year. Now I want to shift the angle slightly, because the next plant on this list is one that almost every gardener has heard of, and almost every gardener is approaching in a way that is producing about half the results they could be getting. Plant 3 is the daylily hemerocallis, and the gap between how most people grow this plant and how it actually wants to be grown is significant. The name means one day of beauty. Each individual flower opens in the morning and closes by evening, but a mature daylily clump does not produce one flower. It produces dozens of buds per stem, multiplied across dozens of stems, and a well-established plant in peak season gives you 6 weeks of continuous color without you touching it once. Some cultivars rebloom, some will still be flowering in September. Here is what most people do not know about daylilies in soil. Daylilies in lean, slightly dry, moderately poor soil bloom harder and more prolifically than daylilies in rich, heavily amended, well-irrigated ground. The plant's instinct, when given abundant water and nitrogen, is to grow leaves, massive, beautiful, arching fans of foliage, which looks impressive, right up until you notice how few flowers are actually opening. The plant is spending your inputs on vegetative growth. It does not need. Cut the irrigation back once the plant is established. Skip the nitrogen fertilizer. If the soil is not genuinely dead, that is enough. Let the plant get slightly stressed in summer. That stress triggers more aggressive flowering. For cultivar selection, Stella de Oro is the compact, 12-inch, extremely reliable rebloomer that performs in zones 3 through 9 and will grow in almost anything. Happy Returns gives you soft yellow on a slightly larger plant. Also a rebloomer. Pardon Me is a rich red with a yellow throat. Compact, zone 3 through 9, and it will rebloom without deadheading. The one maintenance task daylilies genuinely benefit from is division every 3 to 4 years. Dig the whole clump, pull it apart into sections with 3 to 5 fans each, replant with space between them. Every division will bloom harder the following season. One plant becomes 6, 6 plants become 36. You will have more than you can use. Before we get to the 4th plant, I want to address something that the first 3 plants on this list share that I have not named explicitly yet. because getting this wrong will undermine everything we have talked about. Every single one of these plants has an establishment period, 1 to 2 full growing seasons where the plant is investing almost entirely in root development rather than visible performance. During that window, the plant may look modest, smaller than you expected, not particularly exciting. That is not failure. That is exactly right. The single most common reason people declare a perennial doesn't come back is that they made a judgment call during that establishment window, decided the plant was struggling, and either moved it, fertilized it heavily, or pulled it out. Every time you dig up a plant to check on it, you set back root development by weeks. Every heavy nitrogen application pushes the plant into top growth at the expense of the root system it is actually trying to build. The rule is simple. Plant correctly, water consistently through the first season to establish. Then, step back. Do not intervene. Do not interpret slow top growth as a signal to add more inputs. The plant is working. It is just working underground where you cannot see it. In year 2 or 3, the payoff arrives, and it is worth the wait. If you are enjoying what we are building here today, the subscribe button is right below this video. This channel is free. It is here every week, and what I want you to understand is this. The information we put out is designed specifically for gardeners who are done replacing things that die and done starting from zero every spring. Hit subscribe, then let us keep going. Plant 4 is Siberian iris, Iris siberica, and I need to separate it from something before we go any further. If the word iris brings up a mental image of the high-maintenance, floppy-stemmed, borer-prone, constantly needing division plant that collapses in summer heat and looks terrible by August, I understand why. You have probably grown bearded iris or watched someone else grow it, and the experience is often frustrating in ways that seem disproportionate to the results. Siberian iris shares a genus name and almost nothing else. Where bearded iris needs frequent division, Siberian iris can sit in the same spot for 15 to 20 years without being touched. Where bearded iris foliage deteriorates into an unsightly mess after flowering, Siberian iris produces slender, upright, grass-like leaves that stay clean and structural from spring until frost, providing vertical line and texture even in months when the plant is not flowering. Where bearded iris is susceptible to the iris borer, a larva that tunnels into the rhizome and causes the rot you have probably encountered. Siberian iris is, largely, unbothered by it. The flowers themselves are smaller and more refined than bearded iris blooms. Elegant is the right word. Elegant, violet blue, sky blue, white, or soft yellow flowers on stems that hold themselves, upright without staking. They photograph beautifully. They work well in a vase. They appear in late spring and the show lasts a couple of weeks. Look for Caesar's brother, a vigorous violet blue that has been reliable in American gardens for decades. Butter and sugar gives you white standards over yellow falls. Ruffled velvet is a deep red purple with ruffled petal edges that is worth tracking down. The one thing Siberian iris genuinely wants is consistent moisture, especially during and after flowering. If you have a rain garden, a low spot that collects water, or a location near a downspout, this is your best friend. It will perform in conditions that would rot other plants entirely. Plant 5 is the coneflower Echinacea purpurea, and I am going to say something here that some of you may push back on, and I want you to hear me out before you do. The most reliable, most long-lived, most disease-resistant coneflower you can plant in your garden is not the expensive specialty cultivar with the coral orange double flowers, or the lime green selection, or the stacked petal novelty that stopped you at the nursery. It is the original, the straight species, Echinacea purpurea, rose purple petals, orange-brown cone, simple and honest, and in the right conditions, permanent. I've watched gardeners invest $20 per plant in double-flowered, high-novelty coneflower, cultivars that look spectacular in the pot and are gone completely by year 3. Meanwhile, in the same garden beds, plain, Echinacea purpurea planted 10, 12 years ago is still producing flowers, still self-seeding modestly, still feeding goldfinches through winter, still going. This does not mean all newer cultivars are useless. Magnus is a proven older selection with larger, flatter petals in rich rose purple. It won the Perennial Plant of the Year in 1998, and it has earned every year since. White Swan if you need white. Kim's Knee High if the space is small. These are Zone 3 through 9 performers, and they are genuinely reliable. Here is the practice that separates the gardeners who keep coneflowers permanently from the ones who keep replacing them. Leave the seed heads standing all winter, every one of them. The birds will work those seed heads from November through February. The seeds that drop will germinate in spring. You will have new plants perfectly adapted to your exact soil and your exact climate, for free. The only thing coneflowers truly require is drainage. Wet feet in winter will kill them. Full sun, average to lean soil, and drainage. Everything else is optional. The sixth plant is where I want to spend the most time, because it is the one most people are actively harming, with the best intentions, and the harm is almost always the result of misunderstanding what kind of plant they are actually dealing with. Plant 6 is sedum, specifically Hylotelephium herbstfreude, which most gardeners still call by its trade name, autumn joy, and that is perfectly fine. Here's the misunderstanding. Most gardeners encounter autumn joy in a typical garden center. Read the tag, see perennial and sun, and easy care, and plant it exactly the way they plant everything else. Amended soil, regular irrigation, maybe a slow-release fertilizer at the beginning of the season. The same care protocol they apply to their coneflowers, their daylilies, their rudbeckia. By August, the stems are flopping outward in a ring around the center. The plant looks like a deflated structure. People stake it, which solves nothing and looks artificial. People add more fertilizer, thinking the plant needs more support. The plant gets worse. They conclude it is a difficult plant or that their site is wrong. None of that is accurate. The plant told you exactly what it needed, and the care protocol ignored it. Autumn joy is a succulent, a cold-hardy, fully perennial outdoor succulent, which means its entire evolutionary history has equipped it to thrive in exactly the opposite conditions from what most people provide: poor soil, minimal water, no fertilizer, and full sun without exception. When you plant autumn joy in rich, amended ground and irrigate it regularly, the stems grow fast. Too fast. They grow tall and weak, and they cannot support themselves by late summer. The plant did not fail. You over-resourced it. Plant autumn joy in lean, fast-draining soil. Sandy or gravelly conditions are genuinely ideal, not a compromise. Full sun is non-negotiable. Partial shade compounds the stem problem dramatically. Do not fertilize it at all, ever. Water it through the first season to establish, then essentially stop. Rainfall handles the rest in most regions. When you treat it this way, you get 4 distinct ornamental phases that no other perennial on this list provides. The emerging blue-green succulent rosettes in early spring. The tidy structural mounds through summer. The flat-topped flower clusters in August and September that open in soft pink and slowly deepen over weeks to copper, then bronze, then a warm russet brown that persists as dried seed heads into January. 4 seasons of interest from a single plant in poor soil you did not have to amend. Zones 3 through 9. Deer-resistant, drought-tolerant, once established, essentially permanent with correct hands-off care. The single change that will improve your results with this plant, most dramatically, is also the hardest one, psychologically. Stop watering it. Not reduce watering. Stop. Let the plant show you what it looks like when it is allowed to live as what it actually is. 6 plants. One shared principle underneath all of them. What unites Baptisia and hellebore, and daylilies, and Siberian iris, and coneflowers and autumn joy is not just that they return. It is that they return on their own terms. They are not designed to be managed intensively. They are designed to be planted thoughtfully and then trusted. The gardener's role with these plants shifts from maintenance to observation, from intervention to patience, from seasonal replacement to long-term relationship. The shift in workload is real. The shift in results is dramatic. And the shift in how you feel about your garden, that transition from a space that demands from you to a space that gives back, that is what these 6 plants actually deliver. Over time, one plant, one season, one correct decision at the beginning. Your yard starts paying you back immediately after.